welcome to our podcast. It's called the Andrew Lutu Podcast Show, and I am so great to host my very first um, guest. He is Dan Howard, and he's going to be giving us an insight of the 10 years he has been news directing at Watertown Cable Access Corporation. So yes, Dan, you can just introduce yourself to the podcast and then tell us everything that's been going on.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here. As you said, my name is Dan Hogan. I am the news director, or I'm now my newest title is the director of news and studio operations here at WCATV.
That's nice.
So I oversee our news division, as well as I oversee our studio operations, being Studio B, which is where we are right now, and
Yes.
our new podcast studio, as well as our Studio A, where we have our news set.
Yes.
And a slightly more elaborate setup of production equipment. So, yeah, I've been here for 10 years.
Yes.
I went to school in Bangor, Maine. I majored in sports broadcasting.
Right.
Then I found my way here after a brief stint at Home Depot for a couple of weeks.
Oh, you were working in Home Depot?
I was doing direct marketing, so I was literally walking up to people in the aisles, basically poking them on the shoulder and asking them if they wanted to redo their kitchen.
Yes.
I got a lot of angry contractors yelling at me through that experience, so
Right.
I don't miss it at all. I did it for exactly 2 weeks. I couldn't take it anymore. So I've been here for 10 years, and my job is basically I produce a weekly 30-minute news program recapping all the happenings in Watertown, good old Watertown, Massachusetts. We recap everything from your city council and school committee meetings to your community events like the Fair on the Square and the Memorial Day Parade. We do sports coverage of Watertown High School athletics.
Right.
So we do a little bit of everything, and I try to keep it fresh as often as I can. But that's kind of in a nutshell, kind of what I do here at WCATV.
All right. That's great to hear from you. That's a lot of accolades and honors. And so I just have one question that's going to begin the show. All right. So my question is, what's the most significant change you've seen in the news industry during your career?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, you can answer it in like 3 to 5 minutes.
No, that's a great question.
Yeah.
The most significant change, I think, is just how incredibly the very short shelf life that most stories have.
Right.
And kind of what I mean by that is when there's a story that's reported on, that story is almost immediately outdated, like probably the same day it's reported. And because there's this constant new information that's always coming out, because now you have Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all these other things that media outlets need to compete with, because basically everybody can be a journalist now just with their Twitter account. They can report on anything, even if it's most of the time not correct.
They're really bold.
So luckily here in the community media news world, I don't really have to worry about that so much.
Right.
That's more along the lines of mainstream media who kind of have that issue. But I do, another thing that has really changed over the years is also the shorter attention span of people, where that does affect
the TikTok guys.
Exactly. Like those videos have to be short and to the point. You have to hook your viewer in the first like 5 seconds
with 1,000 edits of video and audio.
Yeah, you gotta add in all the sound effects, all the cross zooms, anything that makes it look flashy. You really got to make it stand apart from other videos on the internet.
Yes.
So things are just they're so fast paced now, and it's really impossible for anyone to keep up with. But things are a little smoother and kind of more relaxed here in the community access realm.
Right.
Hopefully.
So that's a great insight. And then I have another question.
Yeah.
This is going to be not out of context, but it's going to be so much in context that it has to only and only be answered by you.
Mhm.
So, what's the most creative excuse a reporter has given for missing a deadline? That you were like,
Oh.
wow, he really thought of this, or you have given for missing a deadline during your in-depth
Um,
reporting.
I'll use myself as an example.
Yes.
Because like I can't think of any time where I mean we don't really have a team of reporters. I guess basically I'm basically the reporter here.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We have a great team of videographers who
Right.
edit a
Right.
lot of videos for
Mhm.
us,
Mhm.
and they've really always come through with the deadline. Luckily, we only have one show a week, so it's easy
Yes.
to meet the deadline. But
Yeah.
I will rewind back to my earlier days when I was writing for a local newspaper,
Right.
and it was actually that was the first story I ever wrote out of college.
Out of college.
I was covering the Central Catholic softball team.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the spring of 20, it must have been 2010.
Right.
And yeah, I was covering the Central Catholic softball team,
Mm-hmm.
and actually it was probably like 2011.
Uh-huh.
But I remember I went to the game, I covered the game,
Yes.
kept track of stats, interviewed the coach, interviewed a couple players, went back to my parents' house where I was
Mm-hmm.
living at the time. I started to write the story,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Boston Bruins were playing the Philadelphia Flyers it was game 7 of I think the Eastern Conference semifinals, and it was that year that the Bruins had a 3-0 lead in that series,
Right.
and then the Flyers came back and they tied it at 3 games apiece, so it was game 7.
Yes.
And I was just so invested in watching game 7 that I totally forgot that I had a story to write. And
Right.
obviously the Bruins ended up losing that game, and they made history by blowing a 3-0 lead in that series.
Right.
And I remember my editor called me that night. It was like 10:30. He's like, "Where's the story?" And I'm like, "Oh shoot, I was watching the Bruins." He's like, "That's no excuse. We got other
Yes.
guys who are watching the
Yes.
Bruins.
Yes. Yes.
You got to get this story over to us." So
Right.
I dialed in for like the next hour and a half.
Uh-huh.
I banged out the story, and eventually it made it.
Were you panicking? Well,
Yeah, I was like, "Oh,
were
this is
there,
my
like,
first story.
emotions?
I'm immediately setting a horrible precedent for myself." So I was immediately panicking, and the story made it to print, and it ended up being on the front page of the sports section alongside the giant headline "Bruins and Ruins," which I have still framed to this day.
Yes.
At
Oh,
my
you framed
parents'
it?
house. Yeah, because it was my first story, first published
Oh,
story.
that's nice.
So it was on the front page of the sports section that day.
Wow.
The day after the Bruins had this historic loss, so I have unfortunately this horrible photo of the Bruins crying, but then in the corner there's my little story about the Central Catholic softball team.
That's great. That's great. And I did I think you really had like parents that were supportive of it, of like your news reporting.
Oh yeah, no, they were so supportive. They were on board with whatever I wanted to do. Like they knew, sports journalism, that's an impossible field to get into. Like you got to be the top 1% of the top 1% to like really make it in like the mainstream sports media business. But they were like, nope, go for it. Follow your dreams and all that. And they were very supportive. Even letting me stay at home. Well, after I graduated college, as I was freelancing at just some local newspapers, not really making much money, and they were totally cool with that. Very, very supportive, and I definitely wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
All right, that's great. So, what there is the whole interest of this podcast is to just pick insights from great minds and people with experience, people with culture, or people that have been walking the journey that we're going to be talking about. So, and one of the questions that I thought of even yesterday when I was writing an email to you, I said that I need you to tell the people that are going to be watching, in case there is someone who, because not only is this podcast going to be just about getting your ideas, but we want to also um, get insight on how to do things from the best of the people. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask, but it will also help to for someone out there listening that's trying to enter the career that you're in. Um, how do you balance breaking news and in-depth news?
We don't get a lot of breaking news here on our program.
Right.
A lot of times, the things that constitute breaking news for me are like things that there's really no room for misinterpretation. And what I mean by that is 90% of the time, a breaking news story for us will be if there's like a fire, like a
Yes.
house fire or something. Like breaking
Yes.
news, there's a house that is literally on fire.
Yes.
And like that'll be considered like breaking news in our realm. If like the city council passes like a ordinance, like banning. Say they passed an ordinance that bans like marijuana sales in the city.
Yes.
Probably wouldn't treat that as breaking news. I'd dive down into the layers of that a little bit. Like, is it an across the board ban, or are they just banning it in certain sections of the city? Because there are areas where you can't sell it within 100 yards of a school, for example.
Yes.
So like there might be some extenuating circumstances. So unless it's something where I can look at a burning building and say, hey, that building is on fire, that's breaking news.
Yes.
I treat that as breaking news more so than something that like people would just be generally like outraged by, because I really don't want to get the thing that you never want to do is get the information wrong. And luckily, in mainstream media, everyone is competing to be first to report on a story.
Whoever delivers the idea or the news first.
Yeah, and that's king in the world of mainstream media. In the world of community media, there's us and there's one other local online newspaper also run by one person. And we're not competing against each other at all. Like we'll get a story, we'll both get stories out there days after something happens. It doesn't have to be in the immediate minutes following a major development from the city council or from the zoning board or from the school committee or whoever. So I really try to treat most things as in-depth coverage more so than breaking news. Again, just because you want to make sure, like in-depth coverage, that means you're digging into a story, getting all the facts, getting all the information, talking to all the people, and you're not just taking one bit of information and then plastering that all over the airwaves with incomplete information. So, like I said, if a building's on fire, that's breaking news. That building is on fire. Otherwise, it's like let's investigate the story a little bit and make sure we have the details right.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And then because I normally tell people that any person who tells a story, or any news reporter or any news anchor or any news channel, you're literally the gateway to people's information. Like we the only way someone's going to know about the new plan that's being built, let's say in Watertown, they have to it passes through you, which is a great thing. So it brings me to a very funny question that I always wanted to ask you, that if you had one superpower, what that would be, and why specifically do you want that one? You can just form up yours.
Superpower. I mean, I've always wanted to fly. That's I mean, if I could just fly around, that'd be awesome.
Right.
If I wanted a power that could actually be like of use to society. That's a very good question.
No, not use to society. I mean, my
answer is like, I just want to fly. If I could fly, that'd be awesome. And there's really no sugarcoating it.
No, like, why would you want to fly? Do you want to go anywhere?
Yeah, well, here's my thing. I positively hate, despise, loathe airplane travel. I hate it. I hate the airports. I hate TSA. I hate the gift shops. I hate the food. I hate everything.
I hate the food. I really hate the food.
I hate everything about flying. So if I could just do it myself and just skip all of that,
Yes.
just skip the whole process, I don't have to
Right.
get to the airport 2 hours in advance, and
Uh-huh.
I don't have to sit on the tarmac for 2 hours, and
Uh-huh.
I don't have to cram into a seat between two sweaty people who I don't know. I
You
would,
don't have to tie your
yeah,
seatbelt and I hate it when we're landing. You're like
yeah,
your whole body's gonna be left on the
yeah,
floor.
yeah. So if I could just fly around myself,
Right.
that's what I'd do.
All right, that's great. That's great. And then one more question so this is going to be more work focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry I did not present these questions to you, but I'm trying to unpack them before I deliver them as much as I can. So my question to you, and it you would answer it to someone who is joining any career, any
Mm-hmm.
any sector, or as long as it involves productivity, if it involves work.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the tips that you've seen, um, that have helped you in your productivity at work, like insights on how you've handled because being in years of directing news, it's a huge thing, and I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, is your question basically like how, like what I would recommend
Yes.
as like steps for success in this
Yes,
industry,
and
basically?
yes.
Yeah, my biggest thing, and it's what I tell you guys.
Yes.
It's what I tell our part-time
Yes.
videographers.
Yes.
It's teach yourself as many new skills as you possibly can while you have the resources to do so.
All right.
I wish that when I was getting ready to go to college,
Yes.
that I had the wherewithal to do what you guys are doing and take advantage of my
Yes,
local
yes. See,
community access
taking
station,
advantage of
because
you.
you can come in here and you can use state of the art
Yes,
equipment and editing software.
Yes.
and all
And
that.
having you
Yeah,
to even give
yeah.
us time. Right.
Yeah, and
right.
you can kind of
And-
because most of what I'm trying to say is most of what I know
Right.
and what I've learned
Correct.
and what my skill set is now, I have taught myself in the 10 years since I graduated college. Like I learned some basic skills in college, but
Yes.
like I've taught myself all of those things, and I've done it here. I've done it working here.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, my advice to anybody is just learn as many different skills as you can, because what's also crucial is there's like no media workplace on earth where all you need to know is one skill. You need to know how to edit and film, edit and create graphics.
To even produce,
yeah,
you know?
produce, yeah, be able to direct.
To direct.
Yep.
And I think it's even more of a journey. Like you need to set out goals, and you're like, I need to learn sound engineering. I need to learn light. I need to learn videography. And then because as we're closing the show, and I would also want two more questions that I'll direct to you, but the one that I'm particularly interested is going to be basically, what does the future of news look like to you, and how is Watertown WCSC adapting to that? Yes, because you're the only from the 10 years back, it's not going to be the same 10 years forward. So how is WCAC adapting to it, and how are you as a news director adapting to it, and then what do you see in the future of news directing to it?
Well, in the context of WCATV and what we do here and what news in Watertown is like, the biggest change has just been the amount. So, yeah, again, like sticking with the context of WCATV in Watertown.
Yes.
COVID changed a lot for us.
Yes.
When COVID hit and everybody was dispersed back to their homes, WCATV really had to pick up the ball and run on getting people connected through city meetings, through sports. There was a time when we were covering varsity, junior varsity, and freshman team sports at Watertown High School.
Right.
We used to cover 4 or 5 of like the major committees in Watertown.
Yes.
Now we're covering like 20, 30 at a time.
Yes.
So
yes.
what's happened is our videographers and our staff are now stretched so thin covering all of these meetings, all of these sports, all of these events that have just kind of been grandfathered in from us doing it during the pandemic, and now it's just kind of stuck.
Yeah, you just have to continue doing
Yeah,
it.
because before, like, no one heard of a virtual meeting, 5 years ago, but now it's the standard, and hybrid meetings are the standard now,
Right,
and
right.
we've had to adapt, and that takes more time, more resources, more
Yes.
people to make happen. So as a result of that, it's taken some resources away from what we've been able to do on the news side of things. Because whereas I previously, pre-pandemic, I'd have like a pretty consistent input of help from the staff,
Right.
writing scripts and editing
Right.
videos and filming events, and they still do that. It's not that they stopped doing, they didn't stop doing things for our news program Cold Turkey, but
Yes.
it's once the fall rolls around and we go into the winter, it's like it's me. It's basically just me trying to put together
Yes.
all of the news in Watertown
Yes.
into a news broadcast,
Yes.
which is simple for somebody, but
Right,
I have to
right.
write, film,
Direct.
direct, produce, coordinate, figuring out. So like as far as like how things look in the future, it's just
Right.
about time management and finding creative ways to build resources
Yeah.
and just get as much help and assistance and input into the
Right.
news program as possible and being creative as possible in doing that. So
All right.
simplifying workflow and things like that.
All right. And then so just to end the show,
Mhm.
I normally do this thing that so it's going to be I'm going to create on Spotify. I'm going to create a playlist.
Okay.
It's going to be the interviews playlist. So
Okay.
I'm going to just you're going to be the first one on my playlist. I'm going to create a playlist that has one of the best songs everyone that I've invited to share with us. So just give me one particular song that has been in your mind that you would be like, yes, listen to this song, and then I'll add it, and then the viewers will download the playlist, and then they'll listen to
Okay.
the song. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Throw Your Arms Around Me by Neil Finn and Eddie Vedder. So Eddie Vedder, singer for Pearl Jam.
Yes.
Pearl Jam.
Throw your
So
arms
Throw Your
around
Arms
me.
Around Me.
Uh-huh.
Eddie Vedder
And Neil Finn.
Yeah.
All right.
I have no idea who Neil Finn is, but this song popped up on my Discover playlist on Spotify the other day, and it's been on repeat ever since.
Yeah.
Just kind of a nice little acoustic tune.
Right.
Like Eddie Vedder's voice is so he's got the voice of an angel.
Yes.
So it's just very soothing, and that would be my recommendation.
All right. So it's Throw Your Arms Around Me by Eddie Vedder and Neil Finn.
Yes.
Right. So guys, listen to that song, and then I would just close off this podcast and thank everyone who will be listening to this to go and take as much time. Do you have, in case people wanted to connect with you as the news director for WCSC, do you have an email address where they would like email you regarding anything?
Yep, you can email me at danh at wcatv.org. You can also call me directly to my office line at 617-923-8610, extension 4. So either of those ways
Right.
are good to get in touch with me. And I definitely would encourage people to go to our website, wcatv.org.
Yes.
Where you can learn everything about WCATV, our news division,
Right.
meetings, sports, whatever you want to know about getting involved with WCATV.
Right. Thank you very much, Dan. It was great hosting you, and I cannot wait to show this to the people. And yes, have a great day.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. This was great.